I was 15 years old. My buddy Jack slept over. He had a coughing fit for hours. It was deep, constant, breathless. My parents weren't home. I was scared to death. Jack, wake up! Oh, what? Oh, man, you don't wake a guy dreaming of Jody. Dude, Jody, the beautiful blonde. Tom, are you all right? He realized he had never told me. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Jack had cystic fibrosis. According to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, more than 70,000 people worldwide are affected by this chronic disease that often cuts life short. The main symptom is a thick, sticky mucus. How would you live your life if you knew you had an expiration date? Jack knew he wouldn't make it past the age of 25. He saw the look on my face, a mixture of shock, pity, and helplessness. But he told me not to worry, because it's not about dying. It's about living. Jack was 4'11" with a 5-foot smile. He lived his life the way that we all should, like we are dying. I never saw him sad, angry, or remorseful. He carried the potential burden of an early death like it was a pocket full of change. You never knew it was there until you heard the jingling. Or in his case, the coughing. Through high school, Jack was an active student with a zest for life, but unable to participate in sports. He took great joy in being behind a camera. He would often hand us candid shots of our playing and would simply say, "Live life." He also wasn't afraid of being on the other side of the camera, where he always jumped in front of yearbook pictures screaming, "Isn't life great?" He often introduced himself as Hank. There was no particular reason, except it was amusing. Jack went to Wider University because there was too much of life to live and learn. I went to see him my freshman year. We were stopped by Mr. Campus Policeman as we were walking down the street for laughing too hard. He said, "You're drunk. Soon to be disorderly." No, just living a good life. Still suspicious, he said. "Don't ever come back again." I told Jack I would die if my parents ever found out. He laughed. That's not about dying. It's about living. Jack had to leave college after a couple of years. Too many extended trips to the hospital. While many of us were waiting for our first legal beer, Jack was hooked up to tubes planning his own funeral. Still, his signature smile never left. He never wanted pity, but he did like a good laugh. Even on the day his casket rolled up the church aisle. He had the Rolling Stones song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want" playing. I laughed and cried simultaneously for the first time ever. There was a problem. I was just handed a gift. A lesson in life at the tender age of 21. I didn't open it. Somehow, I let the speed of life over the next 20 years pass me by. There's nothing wrong with my life, just the daily grind. In a hustle and bustle airport one day, I heard a faint noise. A cough. Deep, constant, breathless, like Jack's. I then heard the song I heard 100 times since his death. I heard it for the first time. A flood of repressed memories came back. I grabbed the old yearbook when I got home. "Dear Tom, many things have happened between us. You don't know how scared I was that we would never talk again. After I asked Jody to the prom, thanks for not getting mad. 4'11", and he always got the girl. I'm really glad we got to spend a lot of time together over the past couple years. Well, I will end this, not with goodbye or good luck, but with remember to live life. Jack. You can't always get... You don't want me singing. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you find you get what you need. I needed Jack, even 20 years later. He lived his life to the fullest, and I had wasted time. But I opened that gift and began to live my life to the fullest. Learned how to play the piano, took up fly fishing, and although terrified of heights, went up in a hot air balloon. I even wrote a book about my own transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know we're going to die. And tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. So let's make today our day. Let me start by introducing myself. Hi, I'm Hank. Who's your Jack? Or even what is your Jack? Can you grab hold of your own transformation? Do you have the fortitude to do something to make a difference in your life and the lives of others? Do you even know the signs that can spur you to be better, stronger, braver? Your ability to cross over the threshold from change thinking to change actions may not be as far out of your reach as you think. Personal and professional success are there for the taking. We all have the ability to change who we are. We need to be flexible to change. Just look at the healthcare industry, with constant reform and new medical practices. For example, hands-only CPR is now encouraged. People are being taught to push hard and fast to the beat of the song Staying Alive, because it's supposed to have 100 beats per minute. In reality, it has 103. There is a song with 100 beats, but the medical experts are not sure they want it running through your head while you're doing it. And another one's gone, and another one's gone, and another one bites the dust. Before we get too deep in the content, I want to share with you that I'm an addict. I'm addicted to Toastmasters. It has changed my life and career. I've had issues with communicating and singing. Although it's done nothing for my musical prowess, it's done wonders for my ability to stop taking 20 minutes to tell a 30-second anecdote. Let me show you how far I've come with this story. My wife and very naive 14-year-old daughter were driving down the road when my daughter asked what that abandoned building was. My very reluctant wife answered, "That's a topless bar." Now, before you think I'm about to get inappropriate, my daughter asked, "What they do when it rains?" Today is a look back on the many milestones I've passed in my life. Some I noticed, some I didn't. As we go through today, I want you to look back on the potential lessons learned in your life and ask yourself, did you do anything with them? It's okay if you did, because it's not too late. Let's take a moment to think about the names of 3 people, animals, events, anything that can or have inspired you. Each may have a different reason for influence, whether it's admiring someone's courage, lessons taught, or learning from your own mistakes. There's a constant in all of this to make it happen. And that's you. Up until a few years ago, I was inconsistent with my professional performance, often cynical, definitely defensive. I've been demoted twice in my career and told I would never reach senior management because they never saw me in the role. Yet I could stand in front of you today and tell you I've never been happier or more satisfied personally or professionally than I am right now. In the midst of a downturned economy, I've thrived with more raises, promotions, and increases in job responsibilities than I could have ever imagined. I'm doing things I never dreamed of. Writing 2 books, being part of the National Speakers Association, being the official announcer at the U.S. National Toboggan Championships. Why am I telling you this? Because it took me years to figure out, but I finally got it. I needed to break out of my own painfully shy and introverted shell and look myself in the mirror. I wanted and needed to change. I wanted and needed to transform. Never believed anything was my fault, including my limited promotions, my slow growth, and my inconsistent satisfaction level. I used my defensive reactions as a protective mechanism which impacted my ability to relate to people or communicate effectively. If you don't believe me, let me share with you some quotes from my performance appraisals from my first 20 years on the job. Tom needs to be more concise in his communication style and ensure he adapts to the audience based on who he's interacting with. He needs to ask more questions for a full understanding. He needs to position his ideas with the audience in mind. He needs to be more confident in his presentations to senior management. He needs to stop second-guessing himself. He needs to avoid shutting down when others don't agree with him, and on and on and on. I've read those a couple times. My managers just didn't understand me. They had to have been copying from my previous reviews from my former managers. It was never my fault and never my problem. Therefore, I didn't do anything about it. I took no actions to improve. I can't imagine why I was never promoted on my own time. Think back to the toughest feedback you ever received and ask yourself, what'd you do with it? When you're presented with the gift of feedback, you can do one of 2 things. Ignore it, or do something about it. When I first started collections on the phone, I was an up-and-coming performer in an industry-leading company. In just 2 years, I became a consistent top performer and was given my first management role. In less than a year, I dropped morale like a rock, developed poor management habits, and received devastating focus group feedback. Apparently, being good at your former job does not guarantee you're going to become a good leader. I had every excuse in the book. I managed 40 people on my own in a 7-day-a-week shop with 12-hour shifts. My manager never gave me any feedback. It didn't help that I told anyone and everyone I ran into I should be paid extra for babysitting. For the first of 2 times in my career, I was moved for better opportunities. Code for, you've been demoted. But this isn't some hard luck story. I was a hard-working guy with raw talent just looking for a little direction. Apparently, I was waiting for others to show me the map. But today is about lessons in transforming yourself. Transformation is a look back on the milestones that have enlightened you about 1, self-awareness. 2, belief that you can grow. 3, action. Spur you to take the action to change. Let me repeat that. 1, self-awareness. 2, belief. 3, actions. What's number 1? Self-awareness. What's number 2? Belief. What's number 3? Action. What's that spell? I have no idea. Wasn't intended to be an acronym. SPA. Milestone 1 hit me like a ton of bricks. After I was moved, I realized my former team was happier, performing better, and didn't seem to miss me. Self-awareness permeated my thoughts. Maybe it was me. A change was needed. I'd been in the Delaware offices for about 4 years, and I really was a bad manager. I was put into a closet about this big to become a computer programmer. I had no technical experience. I was miserable. I was a communication major intentionally to avoid that stuff. I heard there were new offices going into Maine. Thought I'd talk to the executive, see if he'd give me another shot at management. I'm sure I was ready to change. I felt that I needed to change. The executive said he didn't see any growth potential with me as a manager, but I could go up there if I wanted in a business support role, but only after I spoke to my new potential manager. So I did. He knew who I was. First thing he said is, "Tom, do you realize you're cynical? And that's not healthy for a new and emerging business." I had never been labeled as cynical before. Sarcastic, yes. Cynical, no. I had a growing reputation that was coming to light. I was just smack between the eyes with some feedback I apparently needed. Badly. I left the meeting having to look up the word. I had an idea of what it meant, but wanted a full understanding and context of how it related to me. It means a disbelief in sincerity in human motives. I was just a hard-working guy looking for a little success. Just got an inkling. I needed to change my ways if I wanted to taste any of that success. I was more motivated than ever. I wasn't going to let anyone or anything stop me or cause me to fail. I was still fuming over what the first guy said, telling me he didn't see me moving up or growing with the company. Another milestone. Don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough. Prove people wrong. I took that business support role, and I moved to Maine. I was working extremely hard, and I was getting noticed again. I was pseudo-promoted to a made-up position. I was the acting manager of managers. Then, the worst-case scenario happened. The manager who loved me moved on, and I got a new one. The new manager and I were constantly butting heads, and we're never on the same page. I was reverting back to my old habits. He told me I had no people skills or communication skills. I was beginning to believe I'd never get another fair shot. After another one of my Fridays 5 p.m. braiding beatdowns where I was told I wasn't cutting it, I went home to hear my wife say, "Wait 3 months. One of you will be hired, fired, or moved on." Thank you? It was her way of teaching me patience. 2 months later, I was moved for better opportunities. I was demoted and moved on. My manager was double promoted. It was the happiest day of my life besides my wedding day and the day my children were born. But she was right. As I was packing up to move, I was flipping through a book I ironically received from this manager for Christmas and landed on page 47. Surrender to the fact that life isn't fair. In the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Dr. Richard Carlson. It went on to say, who said that life was going to be fair, that it was even meant to be fair? Another milestone. I needed to stop blaming others and start taking hold of my own career. My new manager simply said, "You have the 45th ranked team in the company. Make them number 1. I trust you. I'm going to give you your space. I believe you can turn this team around." I was beginning to believe in myself again. I was starting to take the right actions. Instead of running through a wall, looking over my shoulder and hoping that people would follow, I went to the back and provided support and encouragement as needed. I was riding their coattails. In less than 2 months, we were the number 2 team in the company. Another milestone. Prove people right. And I did. I was promoted for real this time, and I was given an office with a door. I could shut the world out. That didn't last very long. I closed the door, and there was a sign that read, "Change is inevitable. Growth is optional." 6 simple words by John C. Maxwell. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Another milestone. I was genuinely understanding that my ability to adapt to others and my willingness to grow personally and professionally were creating wins for everyone. I no longer wanted to just survive. I wanted to thrive and bring people along with me. I still wasn't perfect. My people skills were somewhat suffocating, and I was often micromanaging. I think that was my fear of failing again. Working for me was once described as swimming in the oceans of Maine. Initially, when you jump in, you're shocked and you can barely move. But after a while, you get kind of used to it. You get refreshed and you learn to like it. I had enough people tell me they learned under my leadership. It took some of them years to admit, but I was making a difference. Eventually. I once had a manager tell me us being friends is purely a convenience, meaning our relationship isn't important. But I lived with that mantra for far too long. But I was beginning to cherish these relationships. I needed them and they needed me besides. My newfound vulnerability of sharing all my mistakes and lessons learned with others was getting somewhat of a following. I continued my roller coaster of self-awareness, belief, and actions. Slowly but surely, I was reaching my long-term and professional goals. Not on my timeline, but I was moving forward until the most impactful milestone of all. While I was on vacation 700 miles away from home, my wife's aunt walks across the yard and says, "So, I understand your company's been bought." Relaxation turned to tension. There was a flood of stress, worry, and uncertainty. I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I had no idea what was going to happen to the company. I had no desire to leave the company. It was the only company culture I knew and loved. Yes, cynical Tom said love. I put far too much time and energy into this place. I came back from vacation and started my new journey. Some people froze in the fear of losing their jobs, while others proactively dusted off their resumes. I personally called a relative who worked for the new company. She had been through this just a couple years before. Her advice? Control what you can't control. She said, besides, with a company this large, there may even be more room for advancement. It sounded counterintuitive at the time, but she was right. Another couple of milestones. Control what I can't control, and I can thrive simply by differentiating my attitude. But how can my small voice influence a company this large that was constantly in flux? I started by understanding the mission and culture. I realize this seems basic, but the old company culture was extremely strong. Instead of bringing the best of both worlds together, some people refused to accept the new culture and outwardly spoke against it. I made the effort to embrace the new culture and openly spoke about the opportunities in front of us. I came to the realization the company wouldn't have survived without the acquisition. I too was very loyal and knew we had done many great things. But I became an early adapter to the new culture. I had a clean slate. Many of the people who caused my poor memories were no longer there, either by choice or by company direction. What did I have to lose? While some people waited for instructions, I jumped in with both feet. It made me think of one of my favorite sayings. Opportunity seldom labels itself. I found a mentor. I became a mentor. I joined Toastmasters, a flood of new milestones. Be willing to take chances, break out of my comfort zone, find a support system, and finally, stop taking myself so seriously. After I joined Toastmasters, it took almost 2 years before I practiced my first speech in front of my wife. I was on my way out the door to a speech competition in Canada where the winner would go on to the World Semifinals. Seemed like a good time. I wrote a 7-minute speech about my dog Kevin and rescuing animals. I was so nervous I did the speech in 5 minutes. There's a line in there that says millions of dogs and cats. I was so tongue-tied. I said millions of dogs and a cat. She couldn't stop laughing. She knew it was a one-time gaffe and knew the effort I put in to get to this point. I knew if I could do it in front of her, I could do it in front of anyone. My family's been there to provide me the feedback I needed to hear and provide me the support to move me forward. My communication skills and confidence level and subsequent success grew exponentially when I involved my family, friends, and colleagues in my learning process. I'm not perfect. That's not the milestone. The fact that I'm okay with it is. I now strive to better myself versus letting everything weigh me down. In the middle of another speech competition, I was the lucky contestant to have a jackhammer going off behind him. I was thrown. Years before, I would have screamed foul. Instead, I went home and I changed my practice routines to encourage distraction. I now practice my speeches while the children are playing the piano, the trombone, or the xylophone. I invite the dog into the room so I can step over him while he's howling. It helps with the focus and concentration. I'm even a little less bashful. I've practiced my speech in front of my dental hygienist while in the waiting room. All are actions to improve. It has made me more open, more bold, more confident. The opportunities in front of me are endless. My ability to adapt has made me a little bit more go with the flow and a little less likely to think about the potential negative things that could happen to me. I've taken the lead in my life and career. I've taken actions to improve my attitude and destiny. Professionally, I've made more of a name for myself in the last 5 years than I had in my previous 18 combined. Personally, just happier. Probably just a little easier to be around. My transformation has been slow and will constantly be in a state of evolution. But I'm on top of the world. How's your 2020 hindsight? Can you grab hold of your own milestones? You have the luxury to look back so you can look forward. Are you aware of your shortcomings? Do you believe that you can grow? Do you have a supporting cast to help you identify your blind spots and reinforce the obvious ones? I began to believe that I can make a difference. I proved people wrong. I proved people right. I stopped hoping. Because hope wasn't going to get the job done. I started taking action for myself and for others. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Moving from resistance to acceptance isn't easy, but it is possible. You have a choice. Do nothing or do something about it. Be vulnerable enough that people see the real you. They'll be willing to help, and more importantly, you can transform into who you really want to be. Hold yourself accountable as if you're the only person in the room. That's when you know you've made the difference. There's no such thing as wrong place at the wrong time. There's only self-awareness or self-doubt, resistance or acceptance, but it is your choice. Your catalyst for change may be right in front of you. Transform into who you really want to be. Then June 6th happened. The next chapter. I call it my funeral. Have you ever imagined your own funeral? Who will do the eulogy? Who will be the pallbearers? Who will attend or even care? I attended my own funeral. Let me explain. But before I do, I need to disclose that no one died or was injured in the making of the speech. On a typical day where I was happily playing solitaire and checking out Facebook at work, I got the the call. June 6th, the anniversary of D-Day. Not World War II. Displacement Day. The day my 23-year job was eliminated. Just like that. It was all over. Hard work, tenure, and skills had nothing to do with this cost-cutting decision. Is it curious that my first thought wasn't to call my wife, but that I had to find a new Toastmasters club? On my ride to work on that fateful day, a news report announced 175,000 new jobs in the U.S., making the unemployment rate 7.6%. On my ride home, I was on the opposite side. One of the 11.7 million unemployed. To grasp the magnitude, take the entire population of New York City and add 4 million people. The call was like a shot to the head. My work identity was gone immediately. I was being put to rest and people were preparing for my funeral. Condolences rolled in. Hugs happened. Tears flowed. How will people see you when you're gone? An old manager once asked if I ran through a wall, would people follow? At the time, I didn't know the answer. I needed to know the answer. That was a call to action. A chance to look back upon my life and career and ask if it was a success. The notes came in. Tom, you touched me. Personally and professionally more than you'll ever know. Tom, we love you. This is your next speech. I ran through a wall, and people followed. But how was I going to tell my 3 daughters that Dad was being sent to the farm just like his childhood dog? The spending freeze on shoes, clothes, and pizza is worse than death to teenagers. My middle child's head tilted at a mourner's angle as a tear slowly rolled down her cheek as if to fall on my casket. My youngest held me in a bear hug as if it was the last time ever. My social media conscious 16-year-old told me that our responses to the relocation question on Facebook was, no, as if I had a choice. The denial, the anger, the acceptance, the exhaustive feeling of having my family watch my own demise. But my support system refused to let the last nail go into the coffin as they put in a crowbar made of emails, phone calls, and leads. I was being resurrected. How many of you have a will prepared? A will reduces stress and chaos. The run through the wall question 6 years earlier had been my wake-up call. I didn't realize how it would prevent my professional passing. My eyes were wide open as I built an extraordinary, career-saving, and life-changing network. In Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, he notes, build it before you need it. Real relationships built over the years provided me meaning and are the reason for my success. I wasn't 6 feet under. I was 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Or at least my next big league. I wasn't flatlined. I was alive, and my support system was. My CPR. And another one gone. My job was a celebration of life, not a funeral. It reminded me how deep my love and appreciation really are for my family, friends, and network. I wasn't defined by my job. I defined my own life. I was going to do my funeral my way. No, I'm not going to belt out Sinatra. I lost my job, but I found me. I use my displacement as a reaffirmation that when I leave this earth, I'm leaving with no regrets. about your own funeral. When your spirit's hovering over the mourners, did you give them something to mourn about? That didn't come out right. Let's go back to the original question. Have you ever imagined your own funeral? My eulogy was shouted out by the many key people on my network who blew my trumpet with humbling accounts of who I was and had become. My pallbearers carried me when I couldn't go any further. The overwhelming flood of notes and messages showed who cared. I have to admit I started writing the speech immediately after I got the call, including the ending. We all know we're going to die, not that ending. The speech ending, the one where I secure a job. It wasn't overconfident. It was just belief that I'm surrounded by an ironclad network that refused to stop giving me oxygen. Are you ready to see your own funeral? I saw mine. And it was beautiful. I guess with that last chapter, I was wrong about most impactful milestone. There's no such thing as a most impactful anything, because everything is impactful. Every day is a milestone, measured on how you react to it. Transformation is constant and never-ending. That milestone or even hiccup in time may simply be the moment that may transform your life forever and put you into a position to do things that you never dreamed of. And as I found out, we can't do it alone. Trust your support system. I want to personally thank all of you from District 8 for having me here tonight. It was a pleasure being here. I appreciate you having me, including, where's Sandy? Sandy, thank you for everything that you've done. And as far as Toastmasters International, the entire organization, it has been one of the driving factors behind my own transformation. And as I look back on my past success, especially my recent past success and my future success, I blame Toastmasters. Thanks.